All right, folks, what's going on? Hopefully you're doing well and things are moving in positive directions for you today. I'm just going to check the audio on the social media here. I'm logged in on Facebook and YouTube for that matter. All right, so I can hear myself. Now the question is, what does it sound like? Does it sound okay? It's kind of hard to tell in vMix. What's happening? It's kind of hard to tell in vMix what things look like or sound like, because I don't trust the metering bars there. But I do have a whole bunch of stuff going on behind me that you can probably see, some of it at least. And that's a good measuring tool as to what it sounds like and looks like. The real kicker will just be to turn up the phone and find out. Okay, so, at 60% volume on my phone, I think it sounds great. So I'm going to go with that. You guys let me know what you think about that in the chat, if you wouldn't mind. And I am also going to turn on... am I going to be able to turn on the socials? That'll be the real question. Okay, so there we go. So what is going on, Angus? How are you? Hopefully you are doing well. Thanks for coming by. Good morning. Always a pleasure to have you around. Sounds okay on my little laptop here. Excellent. Glad to hear it. I will try and keep it close at bay. We had some... Oh, that's interesting. The social stuff on Facebook carries over day to day. And so Fritz had sent me a message and said, hey, man, I just missed you over in Nashville, but I'll be back as we're building out new studios there. So that's cool. I have just come back from Nashville moments ago. No, not moments ago. On Monday, I flew back from a trip down there. And so now I am in Michigan for a few weeks. My next trip will be the 22nd to the 25th. So I'll be down there at the end of the month and then again on the Easter weekend as well. So do a little bit of traveling. Hopefully that goes well. And I had a chance to, as the title suggests, I had a chance to finally play with a different brand of camera, because quite frankly, I was a Bird Dog exclusive guy for a very long time, mostly because they paid me to be that way. So it was good times, and I still love me some Bird Dog cameras, especially that P200, P240. Those are some of the nicest images in the PTZ camera world. So big fan of those. Angus says, hey, I'm doing pretty well, thanks. Hopefully you are as well. I definitely am. I'm definitely doing well, and I appreciate you coming along for the show. Hopefully you can stick around for a couple minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into this because there are a lot of changes that are happening and things that I want to talk about today that, oddly enough, some days I get on here and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And then other days I get on here and it eats up an hour right away, and it goes really quickly. So a couple things right off the top of my head. I did get a chance to play with Blackmagic. It is a Gen 2 or a G2 Pro 6K studio camera. Okay. And it's the one with the big 7-inch screen on the back of it with the two handlebars and a whole bunch of stuff. Well, we did buy one, and we started using it for our live stream last Sunday. So I do have some things to say about that, and the fact that, and just like about setup and integrating it into the system. I can go over that real briefly. I also wanted to talk real brief about a couple of other things. So I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday X-Keys made an announcement that they came up with an RGB keyboard for their X-Keys line. So the XK24, which is the unit that I have, has red and blue lights in it. Now they have apparently thousands and thousands of color variations that you can use. And so on their website, And the way I found out about it was because the GOAT, Tom Sinclair from Eastern Shore Broadcasting, had a show yesterday, and he had on there Joe DeMax of Central Control, and they were talking about this brand new keyboard that basically had launched a few minutes before Tom went live, which was really neat to see that. So if you type in XKeys, Pi Engineering, which is xkeys.com, and I will toss this over here so that you can see that. But check it out. Yep, the new XBE is the range, XBE dash whatever, and that's pretty stinking cool. That is now check this out. They have, I don't see an 80 on this list anywhere. The beloved XKey 80 is no more, and now it is a 96 and running $400, which, whew, yowzas. But they have these new RGBs, and so that's kind of a cool addition. Well done. This is a Michigan-based company, and they make like really great products, really rock-solid products. But yeah, this RGB line is pretty exciting because you can do whatever now with these colors. It's not just red and blue, which is what mine are, and I'm really tempted to invest in one of these just to have some fun with it. But I really have no reason. I really have no reason to do that. So honestly, it would be, so my XKeys is, I use it for DaVinci Resolve, and that is on a Mac that's on the other side of my office, okay? And I run that USB kind of over the door and around, and then I remote into that Mac, because I don't really use that station too much, but I remote into that Mac, and that XKey sits here on my desk, so I can edit, and that is plugged in natively to USB, so it's very convenient. I've mapped it out to all the buttons that I use all the time with DaVinci, and it is extremely reliable. Okay, thumbs up to XKeys for this. And they've always been really reliable, but it's a great little product, and it works really well with DaVinci Resolve. So if you'd rather have something like this instead of like the speed editor or something like that DaVinci has, I can't speak highly enough of my XKeys experience with DaVinci Resolve. So it's been great. I've also used XKeys though for vMix, which I used back in my Bird Dog days, and I've used XKeys for just like gaming shortcuts and things like that. So I appreciate that XKeys can also give you the option to have a shift button and then enable another page of buttons. However, I don't, unless I only had like an XKeys 12 or something, I don't ever foresee me needing that. Even my little XKeys 24, there's plenty. I have actually several open spaces, probably at least 10 open spaces that I'm not using yet. So I'm not maxed out yet. And if I were to max out, I probably wouldn't install a shift button. I would probably buy something like this because that would be ideal, and you could break it up to doing lots of things. So I kind of like this new announcement from XKeys, and we can obviously plan on probably hearing announcements from manufacturers this month and next month, because the legendary and notorious NAB is coming up in Vegas, and NAB is going to be a big deal. So this will kind of make or break a bunch of companies, I think, because the tech industry is changing in many ways, and they're going to have to compete and probably announce some pretty great stuff if they're going to want to stay relevant in the market. Now, since I left the Bird Dog organization, we were talking about a fair bit on the Bird Dog John show how much the streaming world has changed since COVID restrictions have kind of relaxed. In 2020, a lot of companies went to lockdown work at home, and they realized that productivity, to their surprise and maybe chagrin, that productivity remained fairly high when people could stay at home. Now, beside all the other things that went on by being locked in your house, we did find out that people were fairly productive. And so in 2021, near the end of 2021, a lot of companies announced that we were going to be mostly stay at home. That was, people really liked that, and that worked. And then in late 2022, they announced more of a hybrid model where people would be coming in and then also be working from home. So maybe coming in 2 days a week and then working from home. And then in 2023, it was a call back to the office. And so it was this interesting shift. Well, on top of that layer, on top of that conversation, we needed to probably discuss more about how the connected world was going to work. And so we made some assumptions back in 2020 that everything was going to be going via camera, via remote. And although that may have been kind of true, the need to digitize every workspace really didn't take off like like everybody had planned. And so there was a time where at BirdDog we couldn't keep cameras on the shelves because everybody wanted to install cameras in every single office space. And I had the impression that was going to be continual, that was like the way that businesses were going to start working because that's the way everybody was talking. But in reality, when things kind of went back to normal and the pandemic kind of subsided a bit, then companies realized, well, we have all these office spaces and nobody to use them. And so they became big expenses and called everybody back to the office. And so the need to digitize everything kind of went out the door because people were coming back into the office. And so not only did your offices not really need to be hybrid spaces, but a lot of people were returning to their, in-seat positions. And so it shifted. The market shifted. And a lot of the pricing models that we were mapping out for the future of, streaming basically needed to be changed because the market changed. And that's how business goes. You adapt as the market tells you what is needed. So a lot of cool things came out of that, like Remedy, for example, where we thought, well, why not we, there are some key players in this invention, but with the invention of BirdDog Cloud and our lightweight USB style cameras, we were able to bring doctors in from all over the world to observe operations live and to assist when needed. And it was never marketed, as I understand Remedy, it was never marketed as a life and death type of service. And so you would never use it in an instance where you didn't have a backup plan if this thing went down. A matter of fact, that it wasn't even required for this thing to work in order for the operation to go through. That was kind of the limitations of it, right? But if you wanted a consult, if you wanted a secondary expert in on this and you wanted to connect via interwebs, you could, and it would be extremely low latency and it would all be done over NDI, which was unbelievable. And so we learned how to do that, and the geniuses in Melbourne and Norway figured out how to make that happen and package it and put it together. And so Remedy is a thing. I mean, we announced it on the website before I left. And also, if you follow them on Instagram, you can find out more about that stuff. But it was an extremely powerful tool that kind of came along. And that was one of the lessons we learned, right? Like about how to do business. And so I think a lot of those businesses, I think BirdDog's included in this, but I think a lot of those businesses should have a pretty good map about, as long as we don't hit another pandemic, what the future might look like in the next 18 to 24 months. And so I'm really excited about what all these companies are going to announce. Now that I work in the Blackmagic realm, I mean, we use Blackmagic products. They are I don't know where you would classify them. I classify them personally as a prosumer product. They're not really consumer level. They're more serious than that. But in terms of the resiliency and the overall impression that is in the market, and they kind of had a bit of a rough start when they first started out. They're not necessarily in the professional realm. I think they'd like to be, but they're somewhere in the middle. They're somewhere there where if you're buying Constellations and you're buying Blackmagic cameras, you're probably not at an entry level production. You're probably taking things a little bit more serious, investing a fair bit more money, and you have a bit of a workflow. You may even have a team. And so I'm interested to know what these companies are going to do with the next phases of the market. And I'm really excited to see companies like Blackmagic, companies like Bird Dog, companies, even whatever New Tech is up to, if they're still up to anything. Dante has a really great product development team now, and a guy that I personally know that works over there, and he's no slouch. And so it's going to be exciting to see what's going on. Now, I don't think I'll be at NAB, but I will certainly want to pay attention when that week is going on to see what is announced, because it'll be very exciting. So yeah, one of these days I'll go down to NAB. I would have time to go to NAB. I'll be doing a show this week where my vMix setup will stay home and I stream from a venue with my Live U Solo and a small laptop to remote control my vMix rig. Stairs only access, and I'm dealing with a pretty major chronic back pain issue, which was finally diagnosed. Yikes, man. Sorry to hear that. But good luck on your remote stream. Tell me, we're playing around with this idea of doing a remote production and bringing that back to our main production house. But I can't find the solution I'm looking for. I looked at Live Solo U. Live Solo U, is that right? Is that what you called it? I looked at them as an option, Live U Solo. And what I really need is for the video to be encoded on one side and then decoded on another, and the latency to be extremely low. But I can't find a solution to do that without a really large fee incurred. And so what I think we're going to try to start, and call me crazy let me know what sort of like what the downfall of this or the Achilles heel that you see might be of this. But what I think we might end up doing is getting a StreamYard account and just doing the production, getting it into an A10 Mini Pro, getting that into a computer, and then sending them a an invitation where one of us controls the show remotely or in the production booth or whatever, and just use it like a Zoom call almost. Because we did a test of, just kind of like a group test where we all logged into a free version of StreamYard and had a conversation, and it worked great. They said my video was a little bit delayed, but I was also piping it through vMix, so it could have been that. But they just said, yeah, yours was a little delayed, but other than that, it was fine. And they didn't detect any major issues. So it was an interesting test to do. And I think it's probably the least expensive, because it's like $200 for the year for a paid StreamYard account. And that gives you 1080p streaming. And also it's really fast. Like, it's really efficient. So I'd be tempted to try that out and see what happens. I don't know. I have about 10 more minutes left before I have to head out for a treatment for my back. But vMix Call Direct from vMix to vMix can do a pretty good job of that. So I tried vMix Call quite a while ago with Tom St. Clair, and it really felt weird. And when I watched the final product after my interview with Tom, so I was on his show, after my interview with Tom, my video was of poor quality, like really bad. And I was using a 4K camera, I think, at Bird Dog, or maybe it was just a P200. But I was using a good camera, and I just wasn't very... Now, he was in Alabama, and I was in Michigan, but I just did not feel super impressed with it. And I don't know what the deal was with that. I think I can get better quality out of a free service like StreamYard. And StreamYard, by the way, can have up to 6 participants for free. The drawback with the free version is that it has like the watermark on it, right? So the StreamYard watermark shows up. But anyways, I don't know. WebRTC is such a great technology. I agree with you. I'm very impressed with WebRTC. I think that's what Google Remote is, right? When you remote in, it's WebRTC. Really fast, really low bandwidth, and seems to be pretty consistent. And so I think we're going to try the live. So the ask from the minister is he would like to be in a remote location and still be able to preach on Sunday morning, but have it coordinated where the service would go on, and then when it's his time, we would switch over to him and send that feedback, and that would go out on YouTube. And then when it's not his turn, we would switch back to the production booth and run it that way. So what I'm thinking is, just briefly before you have to jet, is we would set up StreamYard as a source in the production booth and StreamYard as an invitation on the other side, and then just bring that in via YouTube. But then on the other side, output the program output to the program output back as USB source to the computer that's talking on StreamYard, and then send the program back to the in-house so we could see what the program is. And then when it's Patrick's turn, or minister, whoever, that's his name, when it's Patrick's turn, it would go to him and they would see him on the screen. So I think we're going to give it a try. I think we're going to do a dry run, obviously, before we have to execute it, but it would be really cool to be able to do that. And yeah, anyways, so there's that. So anyways, X Keys made an announcement, and that was one of the things that I wanted to kind of draw out here. If you didn't notice this, the RGB announcement for an X Keys device, which is inevitable. I mean, I think this is the natural move for them. I've always been a little bugged that I only have 2 lights, because I would really like to, oh, you know what? Well, anyways, I would really like to use a device like this for vMix, which is what I'm running right now. And if I could use it for vMix, vMix can send commands. You could connect an X Keys to Companion, which I'm sure Companion is going to have to come out with an update to support this, but X Keys works really well with Companion. So yeah, there's that. I remember that when even a basic remote contribution setup took a ton of hardware and a video conferencing suite on the far end, we have come such a long way, and it sounds like a great thing to test. Yeah, we will be testing the bejesus out of this, because when it's time to go, it has to work. So that will be the plan, is we will definitely test it over and over and over and make sure it's rock solid. The other question is, what do we do about internet connections at, like, on location? And I think I would prefer to have something like a Live Solo U pack where you could plug in an Ethernet connection, but also have SIM cards and have that redundancy. And then it doesn't really matter where you are, or if the service is bad at the house, that you always have an option, right? So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. You have to have red and green for program and preview. It's true. It's true, you do. I like the stickers. I think it comes, the keyboard includes a lot of blank keys, key puller, and then blank legends sheet, and the printed one. So when I bought this X Keys, it was way back in like 2016 or something like that. So I wasn't using it for cutting a show. And now what's hilarious is this is one of their primary industries. So it's funny how that happens. All right, let's pull up anything else. This is not live. What is going on here? YouTube or Facebook, it shows that I'm 44 seconds till I start. Okay, there we go. Just had to refresh. I'm gonna jump over here real quick. So that was number one. We noticed that X Keys announcement, and that was just thanks to Tom Sinclair, who announced that on his show yesterday. He also had Jono Max on his show, which I regrettingly had a copy of Central Control for Bird Dog, and then Jake had kind of left the company and went somewhere else, and he was my main contact with Joe, but also he was really into Central Control, and so not only did I kind of lose my contact with Joe, but I also lost my contact at Bird Dog about how to get Central Control working really well. And I used it for a little while just as an experiment. I just played around with it a little bit. I didn't have a ton of time, so I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I gave it a run for its money. So I do know that there's a 30-day free trial, but I'd like to download it and get it when I have a specific purpose in mind. And right now I don't really, because, and don't tell Joe this, but everything works right now with Companion. Everything I need it to do works with Companion. And I think he's got all of the Companion things that I would need also integrated with central control. But I can't justify paying the money to get it when I don't need it, right? It wouldn't serve me any purpose. It wouldn't change my workflow at all, and that would be hard to convince. Hard to do that. So I need to do a deeper dive on central control because I'd love to know more about what it can do. Companion will control my key light, like I can turn that off with a touch of a button. It'll control my music. It'll control everything. So it's like, and I have a Stream Deck, and I've thought about getting a larger Stream Deck as well, just to have more options, more buttons all on the same page. But even for what I'm using it for, it works just fine. And so I don't necessarily think that I need to give up or change on Companion just for the sake of doing that, unless I'm overlooking something. Maybe I'm overlooking something and I just don't get it and I need to be educated. That would be fine. My Live View has 2 small LTE sticks on board, and it goes out of a 5G router as well. Ethernet is always available too if the venue has that option. All 4 of them bond together, of course. Hey, I run 100% central control. I got to run though. All right, Angus, you be well, and hopefully your back feels better. Thank you for jumping on. Next time, let's talk about central control, because I'd like to know how you integrate it and what I'm missing, because I can pull that up. I was looking at it yesterday, trying to justify the price, what if I buy it, maybe I could use it. The problem is I had it. I don't do replay. I don't do a bunch of things, right? And so I had it and I didn't really use it, and I felt like it was wasted on me because I was using Companion and I felt like Companion covered everything I needed. But I did use the teleprompter. That was pretty cool. And I will admit the teleprompter was pretty neat. So that I might be interested in, is integrating that. I like the NDI output option. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I could justify buying it or integrating it, because it seems like I don't have lighting cues, like the things that it does really well and that it's amazing for. I don't have those things. And so I would be afraid that I would not have a great use case for it, but that's just me. All right. So central control was something that was kind of looked at yesterday, and it sparked that automation piece in my brain again, right? Now, I use Companion here at home. I also use Companion over at the soundstage in Nashville. And so I've got them a larger X keys, a 64, and I have that all integrated with Companion with their Blackmagic device, which is another device that Central Control uses, or can control. So, there's another crossover. Now, Blackmagic, it's a G2 6K Studio Pro. So, 6K, not 4K. So let's go to the Blackmagic website and I'll tell you about what my impression was of all of this, because this was the big change this weekend in Nashville. So we ended up buying one of these to kind of see if it would replace the cameras in the fleet that we currently have. We're currently running some Canon DSLRs, and they're pretty good, but we've always had coloration issues with them. And we've had coloration issues, quite honestly, with all of our cameras. and I can sympathize now fully when people talk about getting cameras to match, because that is such a huge part of your production. So these studio cameras, first and foremost, we're already running a Blackmagic A10, and that's a Constellation ME2, which is a 1U rack mount unit that allows you to do video switching, on the fly. So I've programmed the X keys through Companion to control the A10, and that brings in all our video. We have like 20 inputs or something like that and 20 outputs. It's some ridiculous. Maybe it's 24. Is it that many? Or is it 12 and 12? Now I can't remember. Now I'm going to have to find out. So let's go to products. We're going to open this in a new tab. Live production switchers. This guy right here. So this is the production switcher we have. This one, the ME2. And the ME2 gives you 20 3G SDI inputs and 12 outputs. Yeah, that's right. Because that's interesting, actually. Anyway, it gives you a ton of inputs and then a whole bunch of outputs. And with the studio cameras, you can install them various ways, okay? You get them back to your machine various ways. The way we chose to do it was we already had the infrastructure in place to do SDI back to the camera, back from the cameras to the Constellation. So we ran both SDI out from the camera and SDI in to the camera. And you might think, why would you run SDI into the camera? Well, the reason why you do that is because you can communicate with the camera and change all of its settings over the SDI ports, which is unbelievable, by the way. But you can manipulate all of the settings. You can change all the coloration. You can even ask it to autofocus if you are running a dual SDI connection. Now, the ME2 only is a 3G SDI input. And so that's going to be a bit of a, with a 6K camera, that's kind of a bummer. But if, in the future, when you want to upgrade, you would then end up going to the 4K version, which would give you that full resolution. But we only stream in 1080. And so that's kind of lost on us. What I really wanted was the sensor to be able to capture the image the way that I want it to, and then send it back to the switcher. What's going on, Randy? How are you? Hopefully you're doing well. So we are running this guy right here, A10 2ME Constellation HD. And this is 20 inputs and 12 outputs on the back. And we're not using all of those, okay? But then I integrate this with Companion over Blackmagic and X keys. And I have an X key 64 that basically then allows us to call preview and program on the top row, and then all the other options that we need. So for example, we have some TVs in the soundstage that show the program. Okay, it's a change that I made when I got there, but shows the output of the stream on the screens. And so we run SDI out of here to one to each of them. And I can change the image independently on both of those, or I can, which is what I've done right now, is just synchronize. So when I press one button on the X keys, it changes both of them. It calls two commands and it changes both. That works great. It works really well. And I think that this is for the foreseeable future what we'll stick with. So we invested in this and we do the SDI in, SDI out. Because of that, you need to power it over this little power brick right here. There is another option, though, which is the one on the screen, which is you can do everything over the Ethernet cable, the one cable to rule them all, which at Bird Dog I became a firm believer in. But to do that, you need to supply it with PoE power and preferably their little studio converter. And so you have to buy another $1,000 unit. And if you were paying attention when I looked this up, this camera is not cheap. And so it's under $3,000, but it doesn't come with a lens. Okay. But it's under $3,000 and it's a bit of a heavy price if you then have to pay another $1,000 to get the single cable idea. So what we're planning on doing, at least initially, is that we're going to probably buy more cameras, more Blackmagic cameras, and then the second phase of the installation will be then to convert it all over to Ethernet and then send us back all that data back to the little studio converters. So this camera was this week's project. Now, we only had one. We didn't have two. And so if we had two, I'd be able to basically reset all the coloration stuff and go with it. Go with, the kind of a blank slate. What I did find out though is that this camera is way easier to set up and get ready to go than any camera we've had at this soundstage before. Now, with the exception of bird dog cameras, because I have a fair bit of experience colorizing those ones, the Canon DSLRs, which were being outputted HDMI and then converted to SDI and upstairs to the ATEM, now it's just straight SDI from here to the ATEM, and the coloration, the white balance seemed to be far more accurate out of the box than, like I said, any other camera. Now, we also have two Sony PTZs that we use, and these are for wide shots now and like maybe mid shots, depending on where the audience is and where, if other people are participating in the production, where they're standing. So we are using those a little bit, but not really. So those cameras are rough sauce because compared to these ones, because the f-stop is super high and the sensors are super small, meaning that they don't let in enough light and they don't really do the image justice. So with the lens that we have on this guy and the lens that we have on the other Canon device or the other Canon camera, we're able to really get a nice kind of fuzzy background when the subject is on stage. Now, we are using a Canon zoom optical lens, which is a pretty expensive one, mind you. Let me just try and make this. How do I do this? I don't, I guess. This Canon lens is massive. And the reason being is we have these at the back of the auditorium. We have all of our cameras at the back of the auditorium of the soundstage, and they have to go quite a distance. And then we also need them to have really low f-stop. So you have to pay the price for this. Now, this was before we remounted this, and we mounted it actually on the lens on the tripod because the camera itself, the Blackmagic camera, is super light. Like, it's not heavy at all. And so it's a very light camera compared to the lens. And so instead of putting strain on the EF mount, we are going to mount it to the lens and then let the camera just sit on that. So that seemed to work pretty well. I like the balance. We are eventually going probably to have somebody on one of these cameras in the near future, like a manned camera. And we've just implemented headsets so the production crew can talk to each other, which has been a lifesaver. But also we want to get somebody on a camera so that we no longer need to use those PTZs. That is honestly the first and foremost goal, is I want to get rid of those PTZs because they're just, they don't look right. They don't, like, now that we're at broadcast level, they just don't look right. We also did a small lighting upgrade earlier this year at the soundstage. And so the camera is there under that television. You can actually see it here with the red light. So it's right here. Okay, that's where that camera is. This is our confidence monitor that has stage display from ProPresenter 7 on it. And those are those two little Canon PTZs. So the sensors are just super small on them compared to this new Blackmagic, and it just doesn't work anymore. So we need to have a manned camera essentially, or a servo that had two presets saved. But I think a manned camera is probably the more reliable option and gives us the more versatility when it actually comes to the show. So that is the more recent the more recent updates with things. And then one more shot that I was going to share with you guys is kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff. And I'm going to use these in a newsletter that we're making, but we have the ATEM software control running it. Well, it's behind my image right here, but that is the machine that is just doing the interfacing for Companion. But then we have our multi-viewer that comes out of the Constellation, and then that's actually the soundstage itself there. That's the stage that we use for the actual production. And then the shot that is down there is, I guess that's the Canon camera, it looks like. Maybe not. No, that's Cam 1. That's live. So that's the Blackmagic that's on those screens. So those are those screens that I was referencing. There's one on either side of the stage, and I can independently control those, but it is just assigned to an output, and it goes down to those screens. So we are running an X32, which has been great. I mean, it's been a fantastic board. I really like it. I knew I would, but this has been my first real hands-on ability with a Behringer X32. I have a core, an X32 core, which is just the 1U rack mount option that you run digitally, but I don't use that for anything right now because I don't have a front of house. So I don't really need that necessarily, I guess. I could integrate it with vMix and give myself a whole bunch more options. But right now, the way that I'm running it seems to be sufficient. Oh, and I also don't have an S16, which you need to patch XLR sources into it. So there you go. So yeah, this is the shot from the sound booth. Of course, it's like way up in the ceiling, not in an optimal place, but it rarely ever is, and that's totally fine. We operate from up here, and then I actually cut the show from here, staring at this screen. The little Companion X keys enabled Companion device is right next to it, which I could show you, I guess. It looks like this. So there's that screen with that computer and my Companion or my X keys 64 that's running all those outputs. So I did even integrate recently. I found out on one of these shows that I can integrate ProPresenter 7 with Companion. And so there's a bottom row there that gives us the ability to advance next slides if we need it for some reason. So we will need it because we're going to be recording some video stuff soon, and I'll need to control ProPresenter from there, but all in good times. So, okay, that's that. Let me see what else we have here. There's just some stylistic shots. None of this. Oh, we did set up, the last time I was there, about 2 weeks ago, we set up this PowerPlay 16 on the Behringer X32, which gives the stage full control of the floor wedges as their monitors. And so if they need to hear themselves more or less or not at all, they can do all of that right here. And we figured out how to patch those through so that they show up as sources 1 and 2, voices on 1, instruments on 2, and that's super easy. So yeah, that was pretty simple, and kind of an easy evolution of the way that that's going. So I don't think there's anything else that I can share with you there that's of use. Yeah, that's all I took of that. I guess I could actually show you the soundstage. Let me look for places, photos of. Yeah. All right. So lots of lots of attempts to save images on those Canons. That's not a great shot. My wife took a bunch of pictures, so that's helpful. Yeah, here's a shot that gives you an idea as to what we work with. So this is in someone's basement, believe it or not. But yes, this is the stage. This is right before we're going to record some stuff. And this is quite a while ago, actually. This was back in May of last year or something like that. And a lot has changed on this stage since then. So we're almost a year away from when this picture was taken because, and you notice the other technician there standing on the stage, he's all very red. And it's because we had RGB lighting and we just could never get it right. And so we ordered new actual white LED lights, and man, they've been so much better. People have been very complimentary on that change. They seem to have they really appreciate that change that we made. So you see if there's anything else in here. Oh, is this the new lighting? No, that's old lighting. Those lights are off. That's a good shot though. Let me see if I can find one more to share. If I don't know how I haven't taken a shot of the stage since we put the new lights up. Let me see if there are any. Nope, there's no other ones. Okay, so enough of that. Enough of like the pondering of lighting changes at the soundstage. But that's where I go each week, and that's the production house that we work in. So really cool. All right, the other thing that I wanted to mention is, where is it here? So X Keys came out with their announcement. We've been working with the Blackmagic camera. Now, my general impressions on that are that it's very easy to use. Like it has been thought through for a prosumer market, which I think is what they're shooting for. They obviously, any company that if you say, well, you're not really a professional camera, they're going to say, yes, we are. And they can put their hands on their hips and act all insulted. But quite frankly, actually, I think their stride really is guys that are not in the production world, but still want broadcast level video. And they do that very well. And so I don't know what the longevity of the camera is, how long this thing will last. I don't know how long the Constellation will last. But I do think that this is a great step forward in terms of video quality because it looks really well. It looks really great on the screens downstairs now, which was always an issue, but it looks great online too. And so the next time I go down there, we're going to have the second one and we're going to get them like dead on. And I'm going to try and get a cameraman for that Sunday so that I can get him trained up and also start doing some of those shots and make it all look really seamless. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm really hoping that we can do 3 cameras because I'd like to still have the alternating still shots, but then having one dynamic shot in there as well. And if we don't have a cameraman, then we need to figure out how to do that. And maybe a camera slider or something like that might be in order. So we will see. We will see. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah. So I recently changed. I gave up on Google. Don't say that too loud because she's listening. But I gave up on her. Mostly because I'm getting a little bit wary about how much of my information is going back to them. And so the first thing I decided to switch out, which are very old to begin with, is my Google Home devices, which are the access points that I use throughout my office. Now, for their usability and how quickly it is to kind of get them up and running and their versatility, they work really well. Okay. So I won't say anything about that because they work really well when you are just needing a home Wi-Fi network. Okay. Fair enough. However, every time I turn around, I feel like I'm being asked if they can send the information anonymously off to Google for analytics. And I'm okay with some of that, but I don't really know what they're using my data for. So I'm a little bit nervous about those sorts of statements, and I think I would prefer them to not be throughout my house so frequently. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyways, I had some first generation Google Home devices, and I decided that let me look those up here real quick. First gen Google Home devices. And these are those little white access points, not Nest. I want to look for access points. Yeah, here we go. So now they're lovingly referred to as Google Nest or Wi-Fi, Nest Wi-Fi, I guess. But I ended up having these ones for a very long time. And I've purchased them for multiple people. I've recommended them to a lot of people over the years. And they have worked really well for me. They're a mesh network. They're 3 stations, and it works pretty well. But I did decide to kind of give up on them, mostly because I was feeling like all that information is going back to Google, and that makes me a little nervous. It made me nervous all the time, but the main catalyst for it, all right, was that I went in to redirect my DNS information through a DNS filter, basically so that I could control what people on my network can access and can't access, because I want to filter some stuff off of the internets for my little kids, but also just to keep it out of my house. All right. So, yeah, and you can read into that whatever you'd like. So I wanted to filter out some content and make it fairly accessible. Well, for years, I have been running a Pi-hole, which is a Raspberry Pi device, that is a DNS querier, but also you can load blacklists, whitelists, you can load wildcards, you can put a whole bunch of stuff. Basically, redirect the DNS to check those DNS records first, and if they are blocked on DNS records, the DNS services, then they don't allow those websites. So I wanted to set that up and have my local DNS on my Google devices, having the Wi-Fi basically use that. Now, the home Wi-Fi devices, the access points, were my DHCP on my network. And so it was governing all my devices, governing all my Internet of Things items and all that. And if I make a DNS change, it's going to be quite an ordeal, because it has to basically reissue that information over time and get everybody to start using it. Anytime you make network changes, by the way, like if you buy a network and you're setting things up, expect changes to happen slowly. When you click apply, it doesn't just start happening right then. Usually it takes a little while for the computers to communicate the information and to drop the old information and pick up the new stuff, okay? So don't make decisions quickly when you're trying to edit all these like network stats. However, I pointed the DNS query or the DNS servers at the Raspberry Pi and then at some additional DNS services offsite. And the home devices would not change. They always routed to 8888 or 8844. And it didn't matter what I told it, how to prioritize it, didn't matter what I changed, it would not do it. And that made me very uncomfortable, because it was like, it's okay, just default to Google. Like, that's what it felt like to me. It was just like, don't worry, that didn't work, just default to Google. Like, I would go in, for example, into the app, and I would punch in the DNS IP addresses and hit apply. And for like probably a day and a half, it said, oh, there was an error, try again. So I'd try again, hit save. Oh, there was an error, try again. Over and over and over and over. And in the meantime, it would just default to the public Google ones. And those ones are wide open. There's no filtering on those. They're useless. So I decided, well, it's probably time to upgrade my DHCP, but my wireless service in my home anyways. Technology has moved along a fair bit since these devices, these original ones, had come out. And so I decided, well, I'm going to get something different. And this time it's probably not going to be Google. So I moved away from Google. And my choice of poison is a Netgear Nighthawk mesh system. Heard a lot of good things about Nighthawk. I did some research on them and thought these would probably be a decent step forward. Netgear is a real networking company. They understand it, and I'm very familiar with Netgear. And so that was kind of an easy step in that direction. But the Nighthawk comes with one base station and one satellite, just in the box, and it's about $130. I set up the base station and came upstairs and had full bars, no problem. Whereas the older devices, they would give me like 1 or 2 bars up here out of 4, and so it was okay, but it wasn't great. Came up here, and the new system gave me full service in my office upstairs. Well, I have a system in my office, right? Like I have switches and a network rack and a bunch of things, so I need a hard line as well. So on the back of the satellite, it said during the setup process, it said plug in the satellite, power it up. So I did that, hit next, and it connected it right away and didn't need me to scan anything or authorize anything. It just found this is a brand new satellite, add it to the network. And they have claimed that if you have to add satellites, it is fairly straightforward in terms of you can buy another one and plug it in. I don't know how much they are, which I should probably know in case I need to buy something. Nighthawk mesh satellite. So the add-on satellite. Oh, there are different models? Why? Oh, I shouldn't have looked at this because now there are deals going on. All good. I don't actually need a third one. But the satellite, add-on satellite is $126. I paid only $120 for the whole deal. And now there is a Nighthawk mesh Wi-Fi system for $100, which gives you 3. These are the units. And so I don't know why you'd spend $120 on one satellite when you could literally buy an entire new set for the same price, for cheaper. That doesn't make any sense to me. Certainly, certainly there's the MS-70. Whoa. Okay, maybe I need to find out exactly what I bought just recently. So let's jump over there. Okay, I have the MK7 II. Which is a 3 gig system. A 3 gig throughput system. Wow, that's ridiculous. One satellite. What is the satellite? Oh, it seems like there are a bunch of different versions that I clearly was not aware of. Got to be careful on Amazon too, because they're like, it's a piece of junk and it's the best thing in the world. You can't win sometimes. All right. So I don't see a place to buy just a single satellite. So let's go extended range mesh Wi-Fi, because they have their like Orbi system as well, which I was not interested in paying those prices. No, that was a ridiculous thing. Excuse me. Yay for a cough button. Whew. All right. Nighthawk. Here we go. Mine's Wi-Fi 6. And I would love to know how much the routers are. Where are they? They don't show them here. They don't actually show the little boxes. But I mean, I've been pretty happy with mine so far. Wi-Fi routers pro gaming? No, I don't need that. I don't know. I don't know where these are. So let's just say Nighthawk route. No, Nighthawk mesh Wi-Fi 6 satellite. That must be what it is that I've got here. So the MS60 is $120 to buy an additional satellite. The MS80 is $100. And then the what did I say the first time? Yeah, MS60. There's like a renewed version of it. I'm so confused. Well, anyways, these are the ones that I picked up. And so far, so good. Wi-Fi 6. It's a 2-pack. Much greater range than what I had before. And I've got full bars all over the house. So I need to go outside and do a little walk around test. But it was fairly simple to set up. Their phone app works well. There is 2-factor authentication on all that stuff, which I'm kind of happy about. And guess what? When I put in my requirements for having a DNS, it worked flawlessly. It worked first time. So I was very happy about that. And there was no real issue with there's no issue with getting them kind of up and running. So happy with that. And one additional thing that I did was the Pi-hole was just running on a little just a little Raspberry Pi that I had, but it has HDMI out. And so I wanted to show the stats of the Pi-hole on a screen on the HDMI out. Well, lo and behold, that if you just add to the startup menu a little Pi-hole-C, it runs a little on-screen like video monitor. So you can plug in any monitor. Now I had a little crappy monitor for this confidence monitor that I use with my camera, and it wasn't working right with the right resolution with my computer. So I traded it out for a different one, and I'm using that for the Raspberry Pi, which is what it's actually for. That's the original product it's supposed to be used for. So I'm running the little Raspberry Pi on the screen, and that, I don't know if I can actually get this over here to show you. Nope, it appears not. So that works really well, and I just have a tiny little Raspberry Pi, and I'll try and figure out a way to show you guys that in another day or two. But now, when my computer is on and my main power sequencer is running, I can have that little screen running and giving me feedback on how the Raspberry Pi is actually running and what the Pi-hole is doing and who the top blocked ad and because it blocks ads and stuff like that, right? But who the top blocked site is, who how hard the CPU is working, how much the RAM is working, all this sort of good stuff. So it's kind of fun. Even gives me a temperature readout. It's currently 41 Celsius on that Raspberry Pi. So that's pretty neat. Love it. So yeah, that was a quick little advancement that I made when I decided that it was time to get serious about some of the security around this house and tighten it up. So there you go. Now, I do need to fix my doorbell because it is currently offline. So when you change over all your Wi-Fi stuff, I was able to use the same SSID and the same password to set up my network. And so most of my devices auto-joined the network, but some of them did not. So I have to change that. All right. Well, it is 12 o'clock. I see the chat has settled down, so we will probably wrap it up here and get ready to go for another week. I'm home this weekend, and so the show will be done. I'll be here at the house probably while the production's going on because my family's going out of town and my brother's coming into town for the night, Friday night, and then he'll fly out on Saturday morning. And then my kids and wife are going to see their grandparents and my wife's parents, and so they're going to be gone for a couple of days. So yeah, I'll have a chance to, I think, take it easy at the house here once the stuff is synced over to the soundstage and we're good to go there. I think that's what I need to do next. But thanks for coming along. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're taking care of yourselves. And I'll let you know a little bit more when we get more cameras online. Again, the next time that'll happen, I'll have 2 more shows before I head down there again. And then we'll probably spend all weekend matching those cameras and getting them ready to go for the final production, and then be in good shape for all the future shows that we want to do. So hopefully you're doing well. Thanks for coming along, and I will be sure to check on you guys in another week. Don't forget to join me right here, Jono Canute, over on YouTube and on Facebook. Both of those are the same handle, and so you can find me there. No problems. But take care of yourselves. Be well. Take care of each other. And we'll see you guys in the next one.